Hi everyone, it's Matthew Donovan here, and I haven't put out a video in a very long time. So I just looked, and the last one I put out was about halfway through my first quarter of 2019 resolution, about a year ago, over a year ago. It was about 15 months actually, so a year and a quarter almost ago. So what I want to do today is I want to talk through some updates for that set of resolutions, previous what's going on, and sort of level set and sort of plan going forward. So we're in the midst of the coronavirus situation. We'll sort of leave it at that. That's had a lot of impacts and challenges on all sorts of things. And I think, I mean, we'll talk through sort of how that works. I've been incredibly busy over the past year, starting basically May of last year, but even the term before. So even the first quarter or first semester. I keep thinking quarters now. Well, I'll talk through this, but now I've started working and we're thinking on quarters and back to the 12-week year, sort of operating on quarters. But I forget that I used to do this on a semester basis. That was every 4 months. So the past 3 semesters, 4 semesters, 12, 16 months have been quite busy, and as a result, the resolutions, the structure sort of falls. It falls to the back burner. And I think this is always the case. I think obviously, we look to get those highest priority items done. That's something I even noticed in the past when I used to put, 5, 6 items on my resolutions list. 3 might get done, 4 might get done, but if there's too many, you prioritize, right? You have to prioritize the important things. And so, for example, this past year, starting in May of 2019, and just ending a couple of days ago, I've been the head TA for Business 111, so first year business. At Laurier, that's obviously very high priority, right? There's 2,000 students that take that in the fall, 30 other teaching assistants, course staff, everyone that we need to sort of work with. So it's critical that those things get done. Something else such as reading, and reading isn't on my resolutions list, for example, but still a nice to have. It falls, right? It falls off. So does exercise and things like that. So it's really been a matter of prioritization. I think, why don't I start by sort of talking about what's on this list? I'll talk about some other things and then work through to the present day and then sort of level set and plan going forward. So when it came to languages, came to Serbian, the reason I had Serbian on this list was because in April of last year, I was in Serbia for a competition. So I did spend a little bit of time on Serbian, certainly nowhere near 5 hours a week as I was planning to. I have my resolutions up on the screen. And nowhere near a half-hour a week average with a native speaker. I had some practice, certainly, but nowhere near this. And when I was in Serbia, I was able to do a little bit of speaking. I was able to rely on some of the Czech that I have, some of the Serbian that I know. Our gracious ambassador, Nikola, in Serbia, would help me as well with letting me know some words and phrases and things like that. I was happy. Certainly, I could have been better in the language, and I always want to improve in these languages. But one of the key things that we would be doing in Serbia is so in Canada, we have Uber. In Serbia, they have something called Cargo, and this is sort of a car, a ride-sharing service. So you're able to go on your phone and say, I want to go from here to there, and that Cargo will pick you up. And in Serbia, it's quite cheap. So we would use Cargo to get around a lot. And I was very happy. I would sort of get into every Cargo and try and talk to the driver. I'd ask Deli Nubite Srpski, do you speak Serbian? If they would say no, I would often switch and ask if they spoke German. I found there was, sometimes they would speak German and not English and things like that. So I was able to have a little bit of communication by the end of the week, and I've forgotten how to say this now, but we had the standard route that the drivers would try to go to get us back to our hotel. There was a road that was under construction, so they would sort of go down this path and have to turn around and go back. So I was happy that by the end of the week, I had learned enough to sort of say there's construction, the road is closed, we have to navigate around. As I said, I've forgotten how to do that. But I was happy when we were there. I was able to have some conversations. So nowhere near where I'd wanted to be on languages on that front. And as I'm going through this list, I didn't sit down and say, what do I want my resolutions to be in the summer semester of last year, the fall, or even this winter semester. So I'm just going to continue some of these on. Languages is something that it's ingrained in me. It's a part of my life. I hope it will continue to be every quarter. And maybe there'll be times when I will stop and sit back and sort of put that on the back burner, but I think it's never something that I see having an end. So I'm going to say as well and talk about how did the languages go for the whole year. I mean, the short answer is they were quite poor. Over the summer months, I don't recall doing much practice, if any. I certainly had on some podcasts. I pulled up the Hebrew again and things like that, but not a ton of dedicated practice time. This past fall, I took 3 university language classes. So I took Italian 101, German 110, and Spanish 101. So just the beginner introductory classes for German, Italian, and Spanish. The reason I did this was twofold. One, I had some electives to round out my degree, and I looked at it and I said, I'm not quite sure what else I want to take. You know, I've taken a lot of math courses, a lot of business courses. I don't want to take history. I don't want to take music. I don't want things like that. So I looked at it and said languages are a natural thing to spend a couple of my electives on. And I also was curious. I was curious to know, how do they teach languages in university? I can't recall if I've spoken about this or not. But I have lots of issues with sort of the way languages are taught in schools and elementary schools and things like this. So I found there's a lot of focus on grammar, and it doesn't set you up to actually communicate in the language. And I'll make a video on that later. But this is something that I was very curious about, to say, has it changed at university? Is it still the same? Is it effective? So it's sort of twofold. And last fall, that was sort of my language exposure, was 9 hours a week, plus some tutorials. So I suppose it was actually 12 hours a week, because it was 3 hours of class plus an hour of tutorial each week. Of these languages, they were, beginner classes. They were straightforward. I don't feel that I learned a ton. I don't think most people in the classes learned a ton. But it was still helpful to keep the languages active, of course. But other than that, I didn't really dive deep. I didn't get to spend time on new languages. And the same, these past 4 months have been difficult. There's been a lot going on, and I have been spending time on languages. So that's something this past week that I have started to change. And that's something that's certainly going forward. Again, I haven't planned out concretely what my plan is going forward for the resolutions. I do want to switch to a quarterly basis to keep things more actionable. I may even do monthly. I may certainly do monthly while we're in this coronavirus situation. I think things are moving very rapidly, but also very slowly at the same time. And I just signed up, for example, for a 30-day speaking challenge. You can find my German videos. There'll be a playlist here on YouTube as well. But one of the things with this 30-day challenge it talks about is even 3 months can sometimes be a long time, right? And you might get a month in, and if you've fallen off, it's difficult to get back on. With 1 month, you can sit there and be motivated for the first week. And then even if you slow down in the second week, well, in the third week, you're looking at it saying, there's only 2 weeks left, right? So I can get the motivation back. So it talks about 30 days. That's something I may explore. Pick something and stick with it for 30 days. On the fence there, I'm not fully sure where I want to go with the language front. Right now, I'm doing the challenge in German. I booked a bunch of lessons in German. Again, I don't necessarily find that speaking for an hour helps me learn the language. It's certainly good practice, and it's useful and important if you do want to speak. It doesn't help me gain new words, for example. I still do need to sit down and listen to mini stories and read the news and watch videos and things like that. But I find that the hour-long lessons are a good way to get into a routine, a good motivator. It's something as well, I've got a lesson upcoming, so I want to read and prepare and get better and get more words. So I find that helpful. Not fully sure where I want to get to. If I want to pick up other languages, for example, there was a North Sami course on Zoom that I had sort of tuned in for the first hour this past week. I'm not loving the style. Also not super motivated about that language right now. So I think that's something I sort of pulled off. I don't know. I've got a ton of new languages that I would love to study. A couple of months ago, I did an hour-long Swahili class. I've been interested in it, continue to be interested in Swahili. Do I want to change? Do Polish for about a month? Actually, that is something I forgot. About a month ago, I started doing Polish in anticipation for the upcoming Polyglot conference. 2 months ago, actually, because the time goes so quickly. We've been locked inside for a month. So about 2 months ago, I started Polish. That again has been put on the back burner with the conference being canceled, Polyglot Gathering in Poland this year. So that's being canceled. I put Polish on the back burner, but I've got so many languages I want to study. That's always an interesting question, is which language to do next. I don't know, but that's sort of the update there. Exercise has been on and off. Swimming's on here. To the best of my knowledge, I didn't swim. Same with running. I haven't really been doing that. Inner tube water polo we did. We did in the winter, continue to do that. This semester, so in the winter, we actually played inner tube water polo. I was on 2 teams and things like that. The big thing that's on here is bouldering. That is something I have sort of catapulted. Again, we've been on pause for about a month and a half now with coronavirus, but I every semester have been doing bouldering. The past winter was my first semester of these bouldering intramurals, so I continue to do that. But climbing a lot more often at Laurier, and actually 2 months ago I signed up for a climbing membership at our local bouldering gym. And as I said, unfortunately, it's closed now. Terrible timing, actually. It closed 2 weeks after I bought the membership. But once that gets back, I'm really looking forward to getting into that. I'm super passionate, very excited about bouldering, and really happy that I got into that, and looking to continue further on. The TA team this past fall, for example, bought me a gift card so I could buy a pair of climbing shoes. So I'm really looking to get into that. I've got a climbing pull-up bar here, and just trying to stay in shape and make sure that I can get back to the climbing gyms as soon as it's safe, of course, to do so. But that's something that I have been noticing I've been missing, and quite strongly. I really enjoy the climbing. The other things here: effectively integrated to-do list. I didn't do that at all. High-level schedule and action items for each month. I didn't do that each month. Detailed schedules were key. I didn't do the Sunday review that I have written down here, but lots and lots of schedules. So the whole past 12 months, but the fall in particular, in the winter to some extent, have been a lot of head TA stuff in the fall, and in the winter I started to pick up more part-time work where at Sun Life, where I kept working. So the schedule has been key. I continue to incorporate things into the schedule. A website called Focusmate is great. I don't use as much as I should, but it allows you to book sessions for 50 minutes, and you just turn on the webcam, you match with some random person around the world, and you just work for 50 minutes. So it's sort of like you got someone there to keep you accountable, but you don't talk to them, they don't talk to you. You speak for like 10 seconds at the start, just to sort of share what you're planning to work on, but then you just work. And I find that very helpful as well. So sometimes I block those in. But on the organization order side, that hasn't been great either. And on the focus, I started doing that, and I was doing that that period of time in semester 1, but it fell off the radar. When I get so busy, every day I'm go 7 days a week. It's not a matter of reprioritizing time. 7 days a week I've got things going on. So it just isn't feasible to do. It's something very important for me, and I really enjoy doing it. So that is something that, again, will come back. Other items that I have written down here just to make sure I talk on. Another thing as well is JDC. So I had sort of retired last April after this competition in Belgrade. I said, I've had enough. I had lots of fun, great experience, brought back some wins for Laurier, but at this point I'll step back, try and coach, try and help the other teams. We had some situations with our debate team, our JDC debate team, at the end of the summer, so about August, early September-ish, where we were 1 member short. So I stepped in to fill that void. It was obviously a lower time commitment than the rest of the previous competitions that I'd worked on, but it was still a big time commitment. It took up a lot of the Sundays, so that was another reason why I wasn't able to do this 1 day a week rest. And I will say there were days during that and weeks even when I questioned, why did I go back? What was I getting out of it? Was it worth it? And all sorts of things like that. And I think that's something key that I need to look at and continue to prioritize going forward, is what activities are key, what activities are very core to what I want to do and will be very beneficial and valuable, and what am I doing just because I want to say yes to more things. That's something in the past I found it difficult to do, is to say no. Big opportunities come up. LASIK, our Lazaridis International Case Competition, is something I've also taken on to be the president of this year, happening in October, or that's the plan. But things like that, right? Am I doing all these things to do them, or am I doing them because I really, really want to do them? I'm not saying JDC, I'm not saying LASIK or things like that were bad choices, but it's something that I'm cognizant of, and I need to be more cognizant of going forward, is am I doing the right things, or am I just doing things? So that's something I want to reprioritize and focus going forward. Other items to talk about here. So now that school's done, I've finished my degree. I started actually as of a couple of weeks ago. I think this is the end of 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. I started back at Sun Life full time, having finished my degree. I think it's very important in this time of uncertainty to get in, have that routine, and just stay working, right? I see a lot of people out of a job and things like that. So I'm very thankful that I continue to have a job and the routine and salary and all that. And I think in this time, in these times, it's so critical to balance, right? I'm working from home. I have my laptop here all the time. I find often late at night on the weekends, late at night or on the weekends, I'm going in and check my email. If something comes in, I work on that. So I think it's very important to have that balance. I try to do that, as I sort of said, a little bit with my language learning, booking some early lessons a couple of days a week to get me out of bed, in front of the computer, awake, talking. Early morning meetings have been great to force that structure. I see lots of people online when I'm reading, watching Netflix, or it's very easy to stay up till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's not the routine I want to fall into. I want to be more cognizant and more aware of other things. Reading, I finished a great book, The Checklist Manifesto by Atal Gawande. It talks about checklists and their applications in books, in planes, in medicine, in building. A great book. I looked at that and said, can I incorporate that in my life to make routine a little bit easier? I think at this point, maybe it's important to say, here are the steps I want to follow on a daily basis. And it doesn't need to be every item, brush teeth, take out the toothpaste, take out the toothbrush, put the toothbrush under the water, but very high level things to say, have I done some exercise today, right? Push-ups, squats, pull-ups, go for a walk, go for a run. What can I do to do some sort of exercise? Reading a little bit of a book, making sure I'm eating 3 meals a day, having some snacks, things like that. The routine, I think, is key and core, and what's going to keep us sane and structured, and have us able to get out of this. We may not be in a better spot, we may not even be in the same spot, but if we are in a worse spot, I think it will help us minimize that. It may help us stay the same, and it may help us improve in other areas. So I think that's one of the core things I want to focus on, is the structure, is the routine. As I said, I don't know what the cadence should be. I don't know if these should be monthly goals or quarterly, again, as I talked about. But I think this is something as well that I've been thinking about, and I'll just end on this thought, is I think it's core and critical for me and everyone, for the most part, to have these goals, to have structure, to have mini sprints. And this is interesting because at Sun Life, one of the things we talk about in the project management space is waterfall techniques, lean techniques, agile techniques to get projects done, to manage projects. And agile has a lot of sprints. And what that means is, let's say it's a 2-week sprint, they'll take a lot of things, and then 2 weeks later, they'll say, where did we get done? Or where did we get to? And the goal is to get them done. So you're basically taking something, working on it for 2 weeks in a sprint, and then at the end, you're trying to have something done and delivered, instead of being very slow and methodical and one step after the other. I think that's important to do here. And maybe it's monthly, maybe it's quarterly, but I think it's these sprints where we say, what do we want to get done? And we work on them. That allows us, one, to continue making progress in our lives, and two, it allows us to have differences. I think, I talk to many people, many older people, and you say old is just older than me. And commonly it's, time passes very quickly. They have a birthday and they say, wow, it's been so recent, it feels. And that's not something that I necessarily was exposed to or have been exposed to, but I can certainly see why it's the case. If you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, it feels quick. And this is something that I've heard two frames. One, if you're doing something, so let's say you're on a vacation and you're having a lot of fun, you're doing a lot of different activities, it feels like it goes quick. You're doing a lot of things, a lot of fun things. It feels like it goes quickly. But when you look back on it, it seems very long. There was a lot going on, a lot you can remember. On the opposite hand, if you're doing something boring or even structured, if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, the days themselves feel very long. But when you look back on it, there's nothing to differentiate. And as a result, it feels quick. And I think that's the balance. I think it's important to have novelty and newness in life, to keep it exciting, to keep it fun, free, and growing. And I think that helps when we look back to differentiate. So I think that's why I want to make it so important that I follow these goals and continue to think of challenges and fun things I can do to push the envelope and keep growing. But I think it's important to get the cadence right, because I've seen time and time again where I pick too many things and I can't execute. So I think that's one thing. I don't have the goal set for what I want to do going forward. If it's just for May or for all of this set of quarters, maybe I'll start with May and do that monthly for a little bit, and then we'll start maybe fresh next year with quarters. Hopefully we're back to normal. But that's the update for today. It's been a long while since I've made these videos, but I want to get back into the cadence of the videos as well. It's quite easy to do. I just hadn't done it for a while. So that's the update there. 2019, January to April is done. May to December, there'll be a gap. January to April of this year, there'll be a gap. And starting at May 2020, we'll have new ideas, new updates, and new progress along the way. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.